Good day, everybody. Today, in our series Daily Meditations, we, Olga Kostrova and...
Jan Hutchins is my name. Glad to meet you.
my husband. Today we reflect on one of the subjects that came in form of many different signals to speak today about, which is conscious leadership. There was a lot of questions from our clients. There was a lot of questions from the readers of our blogs. So we decided to reflect a little bit on that. And for those who never were present to this series, usually we do not prepare. We don't know what we exactly will be talking about. We don't know what questions we ask each other. It's improvisation. And if you want to send us questions, we will be happy to improvise next time with that. Meanwhile, Jan Hutchins, let me ask you this question. Based on your experience, and you have this fantastic career, you were mayor of one of the Silicon Valley cities, you were broadcasters for 20 years. Everything that you know about leadership, everything that you know about influencing others, what are the dynamics that need to be brought to attention to address unintended consequences?
That's a cool, complex, interesting question. When you throw in unintended consequences, that really puts a spin on it. If I think about leadership, having spent a lot of time around professional sports teams who have such an objective, week-by-week ability to measure, or day-by-day, the result of their efforts and how well their team is working, measured against other competition so directly. There are a couple of basic things. As in all organizations or groups, the leader is really important. So the leader has to model certain behaviors and certain values to have the group have those values and know how to behave. Everyone's looking for the leader of the pack and following whatever he or she does. The idea of then, as model of that, not getting caught in believing in the role, I think, is a conscious leader. So the conscious leader is not believing that they are in some way hierarchically superior to the others, but have a more collegial or maybe even supportive or servant leader sort of relationship with the people who are their supposedly team, people they're leading. So that means that the leader has to work to disidentify from having a special power, knowledge, ability that is superior to what they can find or be supported by the group. And then the leader, I judge, has to create some sense of connectedness among the team. A trick I like is called loyalty to the absent, where the group is encouraged to never speak of another member of the group unless that person is present. Neither good nor bad is spoken of anybody else unless that person is present. If you have a matter to deal with this person, talk to that person. But you and that person don't talk about another. It produces a sense of trust. It keeps everybody who you are talking to, meaning you, anybody in the group, from believing or thinking or beginning to realize that they'll be spoken badly of, or they'll miss out on all the blessing of how good they are. You are talking badly about someone else to them. Everyone realizes that's what's likely to be happening all throughout the group. So that's a big one for the group. And then the other big conscious piece to me is to recognize that the humans that you're working with want a sense of participation, that they own either their role or their activity to the best degree possible and are encouraged to be experimental, innovative, do what they truly can imagine will actually create the values and goals that the organization has. That's my long version. What's your response to that same question?
That was Jan Hutchins answering my questions about conscious leadership and unintended consequences.
Oh,
Now,
the unintended consequences.
Huh?
Let me take the unintended consequences.
Oh, yeah.
Since unintended consequences are a basic reality of human endeavor, one blesses oneself and all those they work with by recognizing that and staying unattached to the degree possible to the outcomes. The outcome will almost always surprise you, me. And to be so attached to the outcome that you want to punish, criticize, or otherwise takes away that reality. Since the best efforts of humans are still human, they will always be flawed. And a leader has the ability to say, what did we learn from this? What did we do right? What could we have done better? And frame it in a way that people continue to seek the best rather than start to fear that they'll be blamed for what are frequently unintended consequences of miscommunications and dealing with the Maya of existence that's always full of illusion and deception.
Beautiful. So what is your question, Jan?
My question is, how do I, in the context that I'm just describing, lead from that position in the midst of all the pressure to control, all the urge to be right, all the trappings of accomplishment that have been piled on me in our current life? The corporate leaders making a huge amount of money, 17,000 times the worker in the corporation. They're treated with such deference. They are given so much power and authority. They are looked at and piled on by the investors and the stock market, all the others, as having some special something. No one could be making this amount of money if they weren't special. How does one avoid that trap?
Okay, so for those who don't listen daily meditations often enough, I just want to make sure that what we share here is just simply what's arising right now, how we see that. It's opinion that is not imposed. We just share space with you. So what comes to me is following. The trap of leadership is the trap of unconsciousness, as any other trap. What are my true motivations to be in the position of leadership? Right? Why am I here in the first place? My attachment to outcome and the effect, the burden of this trap. The effect is only great if my attachment to my ego, to my persona is great, to my personal self-centric benefits that I expect from it. If I'm attaching myself, my sense of self, to all benefits that I gain or those that I don't gain, that I expect, but my expectations are not fulfilled. So the trap is not in skills. The trap is my identification with the role of the leader. And understanding my true motivation gives me opportunity to play this role better, because this role, as any other roles, is just that. We perform, as humans in this form, certain roles. If I got myself into the role of a leader, what brought me there? What brought me there? If I truly want to serve, for example, if I truly want to serve certain community that has certain needs, then all I focus on is do absolute best, my absolute best, based on the data that I have today, which is knowledge that I have, information that is available to me today, do my absolute best to serve this community and these needs. And not worried about how I'm perceived, what others think about me, how does it reflect my personal brand, and so on and so forth. But it very rarely exists in this pure form, right? And the reason why, because the reason why we want to influence people is not purely out of this selfless motive. I hardly ever saw anybody in leadership position whose only motive is to serve those people, whatever community it is. Very often motive is different. How am I great impact and leave a legacy? But it's not about them, it's about you, right? I am the leader, I want legacy, I want to play big, I don't want to be this nobody, I want to be somebody, I want to be a great leader that does that, or another, in that, or another role. A social leader, commercial leader, CEO of this kind of company and that kind of company. At the end of the day, the trap is trap of unconsciousness, trap of the ego. If the ego is watched and understood, then there is no trap, because we purely step in the position of observer and know that whatever is self-imposed does not matter. It's just thoughts, it's just emotions, it's just illusions. Come back to the service. Come back to how can I do it in the best possible way. And very often it means include your community in decision making, because if I stop perceiving myself as a knower, I lead, therefore I know, therefore it will be as I decided so. Well, there are a lot of traps around how much do you actually know? How can you see your blind spots? People who work with you, if they are on the same path as you, which means not serving your ego or their own ego, but actual needs of the community or organization or whatever project is, if that's become the end, it's not the means to the end, but the end, then they will participate in making the best possible decision. And all you have to be is present to all the opportunities that present themselves, all decisions that are currently on the table, and together make collective decision, or alone you can make decision, but then there is no attachment to, am I right, am I wrong, how will it be perceived, will it be judged, and so on and so forth. That's what's coming.
There's a cutting edge in professional sports that's worth mentioning here, and that is that there are teams beginning to use techniques. There's a fellow named Phil Jackson who's now leading the New York basketball professional team, who during his tenure in Chicago and in Los Angeles would have his players reading consciousness books or books intended to elevate them toward a place in which they were able to be meditative, to be able to drop ego identity enough to be in the flow of what he would run called a triangle offense, which is a dynamic sort of made up as you go along, it's improvisational way of playing basketball, and he would ask his players to give up ego identity for the sake of the team. He generated lots of success this way, and even last year's Seattle team that won in the National Football League, by the way, to those of you watching, Olga is pretending to listen because she doesn't care or know anything about sport and is happily pretending. Good job here. And so this style of performance and this way of winning is so fragile, though, because in this professional sports arena, there is so much attention on ego and so much adulation and so much money, so much I can get that if I just win, that it's almost impossible to really get a whole group of grown men, supposedly mature men, to give up ego identity for the sake of it. So this is a very big challenge, and I think it's a big challenge in the corporate world as well, where there's so much pressure on the quarterly to quarterly earnings, or there's so much pressure because you're making so much money and all this ego it takes to actually be willing to do the job. It's hard to find the combination of both in a single individual.
That's true. That's true. And another thing that wants to be addressed here right now, as I'm listening my voices, is conscious influence. Right? Leadership is not only about the actions, but influence on the mind of communities that you lead, groups of people, tribes. The question is, from what place do you influence? From what mental space do you influence others? Because influencing is changing the reality of another human being, the reality of the group. Changing reality is not that hard. Influencing people, that's not hard. If you understand the psychology of the human being, influencing of another person is pretty easy, actually, right? So then the question of consciousness comes in many different aspects. What is my place from which I'm influencing?
What is it? What is it for you? What is the place from which you seek to or do influence others?
How conscious I am, how conscious I am to my motives. What is the level of conditioning that I make conscious decision to impose on another? There is hardly influence in others without reconditioning in them. We all are conditioned beings. For me to influence you, I need to submit you to my point of view, which means change your conditioning, or to understand your current conditioning and merge with that. Is that correct?
Come to some agreement
and the way how I can influence you, I am extrapolate what already matters, your current belief systems. I extrapolate your benefits in a way, right? For me to influence you, I need to show you benefits of belief system that I'm trying to offer to you, right? My beliefs.
If you are willing to give up your ego, we can win the title.
Exactly, right? So I need to create a dream for you. If you have the dream, I need to merge with the dream and draw it better, or I need to create new, better dream for you, right?
Job says we're going to have the best product anyone has ever seen. We're going to change the world.
Right.
And get everybody to be so excited about that vision that they'll give up their individual desires. Yeah.
So now there is few realities that I need to be conscious of. I need to understand what I'm doing here. I am manipulating you by influencing you. There is so much of it. Oh my God, there is so much of it, right? I consciously know that I am manipulating your consciousness, your reality, as I'm influencing you. There is a lot of it. People understand it. There is also a lot of unconscious manipulation. People don't understand. They believe in some higher good, in some greater good. But they don't understand the true motive why influence happened. Because influence is kind of manipulation. I'm not saying it's negative. I don't put negative connotation. But I manipulate your reality by influencing you. Is that correct? Is it true? Does it resonate? Right? To influence, I need to manipulate your reality. To whatever degree. Alter it a little bit. And then you with me. By altering it, maybe I just simply boost it up. It's already what you believe, and now I just boost it up so you feel better about your belief system. Now someone who understands me, now someone who hears my longing or whatever it is, right?
We're able to get that for folks.
Right, I immerse in that, or I take your reality and twist it to create new one. Kind of. That's how I see influence happen. And then, of course, there is a lot of elements to, channels and media and that and that. But and then of the day, when you speak from standpoint of consciousness, here I'm conscious of a few things. I'm conscious of the subject. I'm now bringing it. I'm conscious of my motives and methods, and I'm conscious of your level of consciousness right now and its effect in the future. Effect of my influence on your level of consciousness in the future. So your existing reality, I need to understand that, and I need to understand the new reality that I create. And now we're speaking about true consequences. Intended, and unintended. Make sense?
Yeah.
now I created completely new level of consciousness. Not level of consciousness. I might not create new level of consciousness. I created new reality, new construct, manifested form of the thought. The thought that I seeded in your mind now take very different form, because now you will take different actions that you would take them otherwise. What those actions will be. Hitler had great power of influence. He created twisted, forgive me, reality. And people bought into that. The reason why they bought in, because some benefits that were presented kind of made sense. And they were somewhat attractive to the ego, so much. Right? And there is a lot of influencers that created realities that had really great consequences, whether they were intended or some unintended.
Yeah, just today they were burying 5 additional bodies from Jonestown, which was where this fellow from San Francisco had taken a whole bunch of folks who were well-intended and believed in this fellow down into the jungles of Guyana or somewhere like that. I forget where exactly it was, British Guyana, and had them all drink poison when he was about to be discovered as the charlatan and fake that he was. And hundreds of people committed suicide at his request. It was ordered. I think they had guns on them as part of that process. And so this kind of manipulation of reality happens a lot around institutions, a variety of institutions in our world. So,
and happens not only on the level of, you know, how it's perceived to be evil, you know, the death, something leads to the death, to homicide, I mean, whatever it is, right? It can be very subtle. What conditioning I'm influencing in you? What thoughts become your reality? If I'm influencing, and say, for example, just very common, ordinary example. You have to lose weight, and then you will be so happy. That's it. And let's start movement so we all happy because we lose weight, right? It's simple thought. There's nothing evil in it. It's kind of means, well, let's lose weight, it's good. But the thought is not true. Yes, let's lose weight, I agree. Then, and because of that we will be happy. Lie. Right? Yeah. Well, let's buy this fantastic bikini because you will attract all men in the world and you will be happy. Yes, in bikini you might look good or not, whatever it is. In bikini is bikini, it's a piece of cloth, you put it, you look that or another. You will attract all men in the world, whatever you attract will have its consequences. Right? But as influencers, we seed thoughts. We condition. We change reality, therefore we recondition.
So that may be a form of leadership that is underappreciated in our world, this sort of emptiness form of leadership. I get to serve on men's initiation weekends in a role called ritual elder, and I'm considered, or people who are playing that role on the weekend, as part of the leadership team. But the real role is to actually be empty. So there's room for this awareness of the ethereal in situations, the emptiness, the silence, the space, the mysterious, that which we don't see yet recognize exists. All those things don't lend themselves very easily to words, and yet that is a form of leadership that I particularly enjoy, and I think for a wise corporate setting, I believe that that's what coaches can do for a leader in a corporation, a coach especially who is, like myself, shamanic or more meditative, to provide that sense of spaciousness, a sense of calm, a sense of ability to actually feel safe emotionally, and that you aren't in a culture of chaos, but there's calm, safe, sweet.
And more space for pure presence, where there is opportunity to actually see what's happening as is, and by being influenced all the time by media and work environment and social life, we are influenced all the time, and the presence must be here to understand what are we piling on over here. And with that thought, we need to close our conversation today, because I know that in 5 minutes you have a client and I have coaching client as well. So thank you everybody for being with us today. Please ask us questions about this particular episode, this particular reflection that Jen and I had, and suggest topics for any new ones. Thank you for being with us today.